of the October 2015 floods in central South Carolina that was somewhat associated with Joaquin, but was a stalled front. Joaquin was well offshore. In fact, it was east of the Bahamas, but it produced an atmospheric river and a stalled front and upper low over the Carolinas. And in the Midlands of South Carolina, specifically the Columbia area, they got 10 to 20 inches of rain in about 24 hours, Tim. It was one of the worst events ever in South Carolina's history.
And it's so funny that this is the anniversary because based on where we've been the last 5 days tracking Imelda, there were a lot of comparisons to Joaquin.
Yes.
It was in a similar part of the ocean, right over the Bahamas, and what we had from a weather standpoint was an upper level low positioned over the southeast. And what that can do, it can act just like a gear and just like you were saying, funneling in all that tropical moisture. So we kind of call it a fire hose.
Yeah.
Basically, in this case, it was a fire hose of torrential rainfall, and it basically never pivoted. For this period of a couple days, and it went from bad to worse to catastrophic. And gosh, there were so many roads that were flooded out. I remember our station was sending crews down there to Columbia to help out our station down there, and it was truly catastrophic.
Yeah, and what's interesting, so this is the satellite image in the upper air map from Columbia's Weather Service office, put together a great story map on this. Look how far out Joaquin is. I mean, it's east of even where Imelda is right now, but we had a cutoff low over central Alabama, and it just funneled everything right into the central part of South Carolina. And some of the upper level charts are pretty impressive, and the rainfall amounts, like you said, were just prolific. I remember Jim Gandy, our former colleague, he was all over this, Tim. And I remember I was working that Sunday morning because we were concerned we were going to have some pretty good rainfall up here, and watching the coverage out of Columbia of just water flowing over every street. The map is crazy. I mean, this is the PRISM map, over 15 inches of rain over most of the low country up into South Carolina. Yeah, and a lot of that fell in just about 2 days. The other thing I remember about this, something interesting that I didn't think about, there's a lot of private dams and ponds in central South Carolina that failed, that were kind of unaccounted for, and that caused more tragedy because those aren't inspected. They're on private property. And think of retention ponds for like those small ponds that people might have on their property. That was a big part of the damage. But yeah, that was 10 years ago today. It's hard to imagine it's already been 10 years. And 2015 was a crazy year in the Carolinas.
We've had a lot of bad weather. Last thing on this, I do remember about 4 or 5 days ahead of time, it looked like Joaquin was going to curve right into us. So we were already in planning mode of, gosh, let's get ready. Kind of like we just did with Imelda, and again, got a little lucky, but South Carolina did not at all.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again, guys. We're out of time today. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll talk about the drought monitor. Stick around, though, for more WCNC Plus.
Welcome to the Impact Stream here from 7 to 9. We're going to dive in talking about the government shutdown. During our 3 to 4 o'clock hour, we discussed the government shutdown, some of the broader topics with Dr. Bitzer a little bit earlier. So if you do want to go back to that, you can find that on our WCNC Plus app. The same way you're watching this, you can find that portion of our discussion that we had today. So we're going to go into a little bit more depth about what this means. A lot of Democrats have talked about the ACA subsidies and how that was tied to this new bill that was not obviously passed, which has led to a government shutdown. So we did talk to Dr. Ciara Zachary from UNC Chapel Hill to get more information on what's going on behind the scenes. Let's listen in. All right, everyone, here on Impact News inside the WCNC Plus studio, we have PhD Dr. Ciara Zachary here from UNC Chapel Hill. Ciara, thank you so much for your time. We were talking a little bit earlier, a little bit about the conflict between obviously the Democrats and Republicans, really as it relates to the Affordable Care Act, and that's kind of the main focus of the government shutdown. We did discuss, some of the big aspects of the government shutdown and the big agencies that could be impacted earlier with Dr. Michael Bitzer from Catawba College. So if anybody wants to go back and look at that, we do have it for you on WCNC Plus. But Dr. Zachary, I did want to ask you, these subsidies, I don't know if people know this, but subsidies usually make things cheaper for folks to be able to afford them a little bit easier. And that's what the Democrats had been saying, that they wanted these subsidies to continue, which expired on the 30th, which was just yesterday. And I do want to run through a little bit about these because the extension, it was part of the continuing resolution that the Republicans wanted to pass. They didn't want it tied to the budget moves obviously being discussed, but they were able to get this. So what does it mean for most Americans? Because I don't think people realize this could affect more than 20 million Americans. So just in layman's terms, what are subsidies in relation to the ACA, and how many people could be impacted, and what does that look like?
Yeah, first, thanks for having me and for wanting to cover such, a hot issue, but it's also complicated. And as you were saying, it impacts the lives of so many of us and so many in North Carolina. So just to give a little bit of a historical context about the Affordable Care Act, premium tax credits, subsidies, financial assistance, however you want to say it, have always existed for individuals or households that have sought to get health insurance through the ACA marketplace. What happened is during the Biden administration and during the COVID pandemic, there was first the American Rescue Plan Act that said, you know what? A lot of folks, this is a pandemic, a public health emergency. A lot of folks need their health care. People's job statuses are changing. We need to increase the amount of financial help people are able to get so that they can continue getting their health care in these uncertain times. So those were called enhanced premium tax credits or subsidies. And with the Inflation Reduction Act, those subsidies were extended until the end of this calendar year, 2025. So they're set to expire. And so what we expect is that if these enhanced subsidies expire, people are going to see a change in how much their health care costs in the Affordable Care Act. So with these enhanced subsidies, some folks, depending on their income level, were receiving fully subsidized health insurance, like not paying anything for a premium. And historically, people who made over 400% of the federal poverty level did not get any financial help. But with these enhanced subsidies, even those folks were getting help. So depending on where you are, you might feel more of a crunch. I think folks with lower incomes will continue getting some financial assistance. It just won't be as much. So we all know we have lots of competing priorities, and this just might make it harder for folks to be able to put groceries on the table and also be able to continue buying their health insurance.
Sorry, I wanted to ask you if possible, as you said, in every case, it's going to be different. But I was just reading that the average that could be projected for the rise here could be 114%, which that's a lot. Sometimes I go by the thought process, and I think this is a Jay-Z line: "Don't buy something if you can't buy it twice." Right? Like, so I just think about that. If you have something that's going up 100%, that's going to impact households a lot. I mean, even those people who are in middle class, because we've seen, even middle class Americans squeezed over the last couple of years more so than almost anyone else. Obviously, lower income folks are in that as well. How do we put that into layman's terms for folks to really understand how this could impact people going ahead, especially into 2026, because inflation still is not tamped down. I mean, we've seen Fed Chair Jerome Powell discuss where they want to go, and much different from where the administration sees. We won't discuss that, but can you put into, like I said, layman's terms, 114%, what that looks like for people?
Yeah, so 114%. So let's just do this, like there's a report from the Commonwealth Fund, and they're saying like a household of four, let's say their annual income is about $47,000 a year. They may see an increase of about close to $400 more to purchase their premiums. Someone who's, a household that is, making over $100,000, they may see, an increase of a few $1,000s more. So as you said, like, this is big sticker shock. Like, people will be, we've gotten comfortable to paying a certain amount. We know that prices are going up on many, things that we need just to live comfortably. So seeing this sticker shock, unfortunately, there are some reports saying that at least 4 million people across the country just might say lose their insurance. And then others may just have, just tight financial squeezes. And we know that, some economic changes have been impacting lots of households.
Yeah, and that's astonishing to think about, because that could be nearly 26 million individuals if you add the 4 million you talked about losing coverage potentially, and the 22 million others who are going to be squeezed receiving these, or could not be receiving these enhanced subsidies. So some interesting things that will go ahead of this. Anything else, Dr. Zachary, that you think should really be discussed in this, and for folks to really, because like I said, this is a discussion that I think either side has real trouble really keying in on, and I think communicating to the public how this could impact. The Democrats sometimes seem to fail with words in that way, I will say. So it is good to put this, like I said earlier, in layman's terms for folks so they can understand it, because $400 for anyone, that's going to be a huge impact, especially if you have kids nowadays. I mean, that could be impacted as well. So anything else we're missing?
Yeah, I think, overall, we have seen that these subsidies have been nothing but a benefit to, and has expanded how households, even no matter what their income level, can access healthcare, which we know is always a financial concern for people. And these enhanced subsidies, have grown the enrollment of the marketplace from about 12 million people in like 2020 or 2021 to now we have like 24 million people that were able to, really benefit from these enhanced premium tax credits. And so I think the health of individuals is not a red or a blue issue. It's just, how we care about our neighbors and our communities. And so we want to make sure that people can still get health care so that they can continue to work, they continue to go to school, they can continue to worship and play. So I just think this is important. And I hope that folks can continue accessing affordable health care.
Yeah, everyone should be able to access affordable health care to take care of themselves and their families. Absolutely. Dr. Zachary, thank you so much. She's an assistant professor at UNC Chapel Hill, Department of Health Policy and Management. And Dr. Zachary, thank you so much for your time and for fielding our questions. We certainly appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. All right, folks, we're going to be back in 2 minutes with more news here on WCNC Plus right after this. All right, everyone, thanks for coming back here. We do have a Turning Point USA event ongoing on Clemson University's campus right now, which we do expect Nancy Mace to be speaking at in the next few moments. So we'll go to this as it is live happening now.
Well, privileged to have her here. So please give a warm welcome to Nancy Mace.
Thank you, Charlie. And is this are these handheld? Can I do a handheld? Charlie, can I do a handheld? All right. Do I have to stand behind you? Is that possible? That'll work. It's fine. I'll just use this. Oh, that's perfect. All right, good. Good evening, y'all. Good evening, Clemson. I wore my best Clemson orange so that we can get a third big win in football, right? Yes, yes. Thank you. Goodness, y'all are so quiet. Don't be timid. A couple things. Number one, I'm going to take as many questions as I can. There are no questions that are off limits at all. In fact, I would encourage you to ask your toughest questions up front so that we don't run out of time. The second thing that I want to do is that I want to honor Charlie Kirk tonight. We have a lot of people in the room tonight. Some of us are going to agree, some of us are going to disagree. But the one thing that Charlie did was he offered a platform. He offered a forum to everyone, every color, every walk of life, every zip code, every political ideology. He lets you come up to the microphone and ask your question. And he was murdered for it. And it takes a lot of courage to come out. I know some people are concerned about security and that kind of thing. But I've done 3 Turning Point events this year. I did one at the University of South Carolina. Did anyone see the video where somebody tried to throw a fern? Anyone see the fern video? That was a Turning Point event. It was a transgender person, man in a dress. I didn't like what I had to say, so they proceeded to try to pick up a potted plant and throw it at me. It was like it was just a fern. But the last event I spoke at this summer was at Blexit. For those who want to say that Charlie Kirk was racist, that is a lie. Blexit is a forum for black conservatives leading the Democrat Party. My staff told me I was the only white person to speak at Blexit this year. And it was an immense honor. That event was hosted, funded, and sponsored by Charlie Kirk and Turning Point. He did that. And it was a huge, immense honor. In fact, the last time I texted him, I wasn't particularly close with other members of Congress, but the last time I texted him, I asked him if my kid, who was with me at Blexit, because there was a big Turning Point event going on in Tampa in July at the same time, my kid wanted to meet him because my child had been inspired by Turning Point, by Charlie Kirk, and just wanted to shake his hand. My kid never got the chance to do that because Charlie was taken from us in cold blood, 31 years old, a father, perfect father, husband, and follower of Christ. And if I can just take a moment to pray over Charlie Kirk this evening, we can bow our heads. Lord, we are here together tonight. Those of us, some of us agree, some of us don't, but we're here to honor the First Amendment. We're here to honor free speech. We're here to honor Charlie Kirk and the movement and moment in the wake of his murder that he has inspired a generation in your name, many of us flocking to church for the first time, some praying for the first time. I know that I heard from one of my children for the first time this week talking about praying and prayer and finding a life through Christ that I'd never heard before in my child, that we are revived in this moment, coming together in this forum, in every forum across the country where we've had over 120,000 students who said they want to follow in his path. And in the book of Jeremiah 6:16, where God talks about standing at a crossroads, and our country is at a crossroads today, for the inevitable future in perpetuity in this moment, that we're looking for the right path, and we follow it, that we take it, and we choose the right path and follow in Christ, just as Charlie would have wanted. And in his name we pray, amen. About 6 years ago, it's 2019, and I had just walked into church for the first time in a very long time. And I didn't spontaneously combust. And I was going through not my first divorce, but my second. I don't recommend it. When you find your life partner, stay committed and stay in that relationship. And I was going through my second divorce, and I was just in church for the first time. It was a Saturday night, and the preacher was preaching on the verse I just prayed over, Jeremiah 6:16, about being at a crossroads and choosing the right way, because I was lost. So often we get lost. We get into these tunnels, we get into these valleys, we get into these ditches, and we don't know what ends up. We don't know the right way. And my daughter was really little. She was in like the kids' care, and I had my oldest with me who was 12, and he put his little arm around me and he said, "Mommy, I love you. It's going to be okay. We're going to be okay." And that was the first time I really gave my life to Christ. And I've been in church as much as I can every Sunday for the last 6 years, but it's not more about being in church. It's about following in his path. And we're not perfect. Y'all have seen me curse sometimes. I love Jesus, but I do curse a little from time to time. But what I have seen in the last 3 weeks since Charlie's murder, the revival, young people praying on TikTok, young people talking about what they believe in, young people having aspirations for the future. I have to tell you, an old woman like me, I'm almost 50, you all, this young generation in front of me, sitting in this room right now, have given me so much hope for the future. So I gotta tell you, we were worried for a while. And what I have seen you all come together in your communities, I've seen so many people coming into church. I've seen so many people, 121,000, I think at last count, students reached out to Turning Point to ask to start a chapter on a college or high school campus. Like, this moment is installing. This is a movement, and it is fueled by young people like you. And to watch what the students here have done when they've seen something wrong, a professor celebrating murder, what you all have done to step up and showcase that was pretty remarkable, and coming together. The tabling that was happening, anytime you guys want a table and I'm nearby, I'll table with you. But the tabling that was happening, we had students that were willing to go outside, willing to go in public and table and have their voices heard. And I can tell you there's nothing more inspiring than seeing young people having their voices heard. Even if we vehemently disagree, you have an idea. You're passionate, and you believe in it. And there are things worth believing and fighting for, figuratively, not literally, that we're doing. And I heard Charlie say my bio, 2020, I became the first Republican woman ever from the state of South Carolina to be elected to Congress. It had not happened before. It took 100 years since women had the right to vote for us to get a Republican woman elected to Congress. And we as conservatives, we did that. We now have two. Sherry Biggs from Anderson is now the second woman to serve in Congress from the state of South Carolina. So it's immensely exciting to be a part of history in that way, but also I haven't always been that successful. I was a high school dropout. At the age of 17, I decided to drop out of high school. It was 1995. And my dad was a retired Army general. My mom was a retired school teacher. Anyone heard of Charlemagne? Charlemagne, the Breakfast Club podcast? Charlemagne and I dropped out of the same high school the same year. And our moms were teachers. You can't find two more opposite people that believe in the most opposite things ideologically. And you know what? He and I are really close friends. Like, we ought to be able to have these conversations and talk about our disagreements or our differences, but not get shot for it. Not have your life stolen from your children for our beliefs. And so I think it's really important we've come together tonight. I went from making waffles to making history at the Citadel, so 26 years ago. I eventually finished high school and would go on to college, and I became the first woman to graduate from the Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina, and then would go on to Congress. And so to be a part of history, what we're seeing tonight is huge. I'm enormously proud of the president. I have held the line over and over again for our conservative values. I am a rape survivor. When Donald Trump was accused of rape, and I was sitting on the George Stephanopoulos program on ABC, and he defamed him 10 times over in a 10-minute interview, Donald Trump won a $15 million lawsuit from my interview. I don't want a commission. My joke is I would be great. But that interview, he won $15 million. He's going to help build the presidential library with that money. I just want like a name over the women's bathroom that says a Nancy Mace bathroom. Because I've been fighting for women and girls for a long time. I recently learned last year that we have college campuses where men dressed as women can show up and use the locker room or be part of the women's dormitory, that sort of thing. So I've been fighting for women and girls causes, getting men out of women's sports for a long time. I'm also the member of Congress that got the director of the Secret Service fired or out of a job after President Trump was shot. We had a hearing with the director of the Secret Service last year after he was shot, and she came to Congress and decided she was not going to tell the truth, and I filed a resolution to impeach her. And 12 hours later, she quit. So I've been working really hard in Congress to reflect our values as a state, the state of South Carolina, but also look out for our kids, look out for our students, and that sort of thing. So it's an honor to be here. I'm super excited. And with that, Charlie, I just want to take questions. Let's go. I'm assuming you guys have roaming mics. Do you think the two might want to do roaming mics?
Yeah, we'll have one and yeah.
I don't know, you can't see. Or I could just use this too.
Get this, try and get this for you. We might actually have to work down there. Is this working?
Yes. All right, who wants to go first?
Yeah, if you want to have a question, you line up right there, and then.
Everyone's pointing at somebody else. Who's going to go first?
If you have a question, just make a line and we'll kind of go down the line. So, first come, first serve.
Don't be shy, I don't bite, contrary to mainstream media.
Hello, thank you for coming here today. So I'm a freshman here at Clemson, and I listened to Charlie's podcast since I was in 8th grade during the 2020 election. So I was wondering now, it's different that he's gone. What other resources would you suggest to get great information like you would get?
Well, I wouldn't stop listening to Charlie's podcast. He's had a couple of guest hosts, including the vice president. A lot of the alternate conservative media podcasts are really where it's at. I think a lot of my news is from X. I hit the refresh on the For You page. I guess what they call it. I used to get it from Drudge Report, but I know I think it's a little more biased now. But the podcasts are really interesting. A lot of folks in your generation are listening to Ben Shapiro. Also, he's another one. But I got one of my kids a subscription to YouTube, and all they do is watch conservative alt media on YouTube. That's where they get their information, or on TikTok. But I get a lot of my data and information off of X, off of Twitter, because it's changing so much. And I feel like you get a pretty good viewpoint because you can see opposing views on X. So I don't like to read just one side. I want to know what the other side is saying. Like, I won't just do Fox News. I'll do CNN, I'll do other networks too, because I like going into lines. In fact, on Friday I was in California and I did Bill Maher. So, I go places that most people don't want to measure. But he's great too. Bill Maher is fantastic. Anybody listen to or watch Bill Maher? He has a great perspective, which he is like classically liberal, but he's also willing to call out his own party, which I find refreshing, which he's done a lot of. He's done on Friday really, really well. He takes on both sides. Like, I think that's really interesting. He's really good.
Thank you so much.
Maybe you can tell me what else are you watching?
So I do listen to Ben Shapiro a little bit, but it was mainly just Charlie Kirk all the way. And I also wanted to say hi for my Uncle Jamie Bosworth.
Oh my gosh, that's your uncle! I was texting with him yesterday and today. He's incredible.
Yeah, so I wanted
You
to
have a great family.
Yeah, thank
We're
you.
going to get a picture later.
I really appreciate it.
Okay, fantastic. Tell him I said hi.
Will do.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Travis Schmidt. I recently graduated, but I work for the university. And I figured this was kind of, you obviously have the inside scoop. And I've been listening to a lot of conservative political commentary on the recent government shutdown.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, I thought you would be the perfect person to speak into kind of an internal perspective. I have my own theories as to what prompted that, but I would like to hear your thoughts.
So my theory, is that Chuck Schumer is afraid of being primaried in the U.S. Senate race next year by AOC. That is why we're having a government shutdown, because of a former bartender from the Bronx. Legitimately, that is what's happening. And so the polling says, even the New York Times has a poll out, that says 76% of Democrats do not want a government shutdown. But the leader of the minority party in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, decided to shut the government down anyway. So the government spending bill, the continuing resolution, passed in the House last week, and it's in the Senate. The Senate failed to pass because the Senate needs 60 votes. We have 53 Republicans, they need 7 Democrats. They got 3 Democrats, they got 56 votes, they need 4 more. They need 4 more Democrats in effect. But at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to. Now, Democrats went to the president and went to the Speaker of the House and went to John Thune a couple days ago with a grab bag, a package of $1.5 trillion in spending to keep the government open for the next 4 weeks. Does anyone think that $1.5 trillion over the next 4 weeks is a good idea? It's a terrible idea. But they also want to
All right, folks. Hey, we're going to go to break real quick, take a 2-minute break, and we're going to see if we can get our shot back up. Nancy Mace speaking at the Turning Point USA event on Clemson University's campus. But we'll be back in 2 minutes. See you then. All right, folks, we're back here on WCNC Plus. We do have the shot back up, and Nancy Mace is still speaking, so we'll go to the Turning Point USA event on Clemson's campus, happening live now.
There's going to be real pressure points starting next week, too.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your perspective, and thanks for coming today.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Representative Mace. My name is Jack Clown. I'm chairman of the College Public here on Clemson's campus. It's great to meet you in person.
Pleasure.
My question today revolves around a tweet that you published in 2021. So before I ask the question, I want to make sure that first I say, I'm not trying to get you here, nothing like that. Obviously, a lot of time has passed, so I do want some clarification on words like the pandemic kept all of us from celebrating Pride here in the Low Country in 2020. But hopefully, as we begin to come back open again, we can all come together to celebrate the challenges our LGBTQ plus community overcome and the bright future ahead. Hashtag Pride Month, hashtag Pride 2021. So I just wanted some clarification as to your thoughts on sort of the LGBTQ community and as we move forward, tweets like that from representatives.
I share President Trump's ideology and policies on LGBTQ.
Sure. Okay. Should I get you to expand on that any, or?
Well, I have the same ideology that he has, and he supported LGBTQ folks. We have blockhead Republicans, we have gay Republican groups that support the president, that have supported conservatives, and in taking what Charlie Kirk, what his message was, he was welcoming everybody into the party, into the big tent. He didn't have to agree with them or their ideology, but he wanted everyone to be welcome in the Republican Party. The same thing with Trump. He has that same ideology, and I share the ideology of Trump in that too.
Okay, awesome. Well, I really appreciate the answer. I really appreciate being here. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman Mays, for coming and speaking out tonight. I really appreciate your advocacy and your action in Congress. I just have one question. Do you think that foreign agency or advocacy groups like AIPAC should be required to register as foreign agents?
I don't see the work that AIPAC does as a foreign agent. They do support candidates, and I think the last I saw, someone posted a meme of me that I got about 130,000 from AIPAC sources for my re-election campaign. I want to know why it's so low and why it's not more. But I don't see a reason for them to register. They haven't had to. They're following our laws. I have been on a trip with AIPAC to Israel, and I will tell you it was extremely educating for me. It was pre the Iranian conflict. To be able to see the kibbutzes where Jews were taken, where the Beebe family, I was in the front yard of the Beebe family, the redheaded, beautiful child, the wife and the 2 boys, babies were taken. Young Ariel, the 4-year-old child's tricycle was still in the front yard a year later. It's just devastating to go to the Golan Heights, to go to the border of Libya and Syria, the border of Gaza. I was able to do that because we had folks from AIPAC that helped sponsor the trip and provided educational opportunities for people from both sides of the aisle to do it, for Democrats and Republicans alike, on what's really going on over there. And Israel is the tip of the spear. They are really, in terms of fighting terrorism, they are doing it bigger and better than anyone, and we need them to do that. What they did in Iran, and how Trump buttressed their actions by sending our planes over and bombing the nuclear facilities. Like I was all in on that. And I will also tell you that I had a small campaign operation, but more than half the folks on there are Jewish. So I'm Israel all the way.
Thank you for your perspective. God bless.
Thank you. God bless you.
Okay, infrastructure. So we just finished the lane extension from about edge of Gaffney to about the edge of Calkins. That was 8 years, $480 million.
Mm-hmm.
We're supposed to do a second part in 2030. It's supposed to go from Spartanburg to Easley.
Mm-hmm.
I just want your perspective on like how long do you why do you think the project takes so long? What it costs so much?
Is it state or federal or both? Do you know where the resources are from?
I believe it's a state project.
Okay. I have to get more information from SCDOT, but what I can tell you is that over the last 4 years while Biden was president, I don't think, gotten enough projects shovel-ready in the infrastructure side of things for a Trump administration to be able to provide appropriations of money. I will tell you, the state has struggled with revenues in some cases on some of these projects, and with inflation, post-COVID, et cetera, the cost of finishing some of these projects is exponentially higher than when they originally were, and so for some of them, they have to go back out and get, do like 1 cent votes, they can get infrastructure dollars, et cetera. One of the things that I've done as a member of Congress is work really hard to get federal grant funding for infrastructure that can relieve and release some state funds for roads and bridges. So recently my office supported the grant, a $195 million grant that was awarded to Long Point Road off the interstate off of 526. It was the largest infrastructure grant in state history. My office has not been announced yet, but there's another grant that we supported, another $195 million. So I think it's really important that we have voices at the federal level who know people in administration who work with the state to find money and resources. Sometimes it's permitting. Sometimes it's the Army Corps of Engineers that's slowing down permitting for projects. We've had many projects in the Low Country where we needed a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers. It was taking months. I make a phone call, I get it approved in hours. So sometimes it's just making people aware. The other thing that I've noticed too on infrastructure is that getting federal, state, and local governments together, sometimes they're just shouting over each other, they don't want to meet. I will force people to get in a room and hash out and negotiate a deal, because it's that important. We got to put ego aside and make sure that we're doing the best that we can with the resources that we have and finish projects we promised.
Is the issue from the Army Corps of Engineers?
I don't know. Sometimes it's permitting. Sometimes when you're building a road or doing a bridge, that the Army Corps will still have permits that you need to get approved. Sometimes it's local permitting, sometimes it's the county, sometimes it's the state, sometimes it's environmental, federal permits that sometimes take time too. Some of the permits can take years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to see like any advancement in like high-speed rail, I think for Amtrak?
I'm not a big fan of Amtrak. The Wi-Fi is so-so. But we're subsidizing a product that doesn't work. I mean, I'm big on the private sector funding things. Like in the infrastructure bill, for example, there were a lot of green energy things. Like you have the government now competing with private entrepreneurs to build electric charging stations. We have tons of Teslas in South Carolina, but we are not tons of them. We have charging stations all over the place. We don't need the government building them. When we have entrepreneurs, we have startups and small businesses that are competing in the market to try to make a dollar. We don't need the government competing with the private sector. So I see a lot of waste in Amtrak in public rail and public transportation.
Hi, my name is Jamie. I'm a returning student here at Clemson. And I left here in 2020, and I've just become very concerned about what I've noticed. The changes here at Clemson, the DEI, all this woke nonsense, and especially the foreigners. I was at the gym the other day, I walked around, it was like half foreigners. If this continues, we're going to look like the UK in a couple of years.
Well, I can tell you that Trump is looking at visas. He just did a thing, I think, with the vet on visas. Folks paying like $100,000 to get a work visa to come here. That's done through the administration at the federal level as opposed to state level. I am really concerned about folks, especially in like the AI and tech space that are here from China, for example, that come here and
I'm more concerned about the Muslims.
That too.
People will never assimilate to this country.
Yeah, Minnesota.
They're building a mosque a mile from here.
Yeah.
Like, this should concern everybody.
Yeah, well, I was the one that, I did a resolution on Alamar. I mean, she wants to be in Somalia. She can go sit in Somalia, but they will not, largely, if you look at Minnesota and Little Mogadishu over there, they don't want to assimilate. And those are not the values our country was founded on. Sharia law should be banned in the United States of America. And if you want Sharia law, then go back to whatever country has it, because it isn't going to be here.
100%.
Yeah.
So what do we do as CPUSA, CCR, other organizations here? How can you help? What can we do to combat this and put us back on the trajectory of conservative values? That's what Clemson is all about.
I would invite your local elected officials. I would invite your local elected officials here and let them answer those questions. What are they doing in the state house? What are they doing in the state legislature to ensure we don't have epic in Texas, that we don't have epic here in South Carolina? I mean, if you've seen those plans for that community, it's crazy. It's like there are no-go zones. You can't even go in there. So I am deeply concerned. And the other thing that we should be concerned about, too, is the amount of land that China owns next to military bases, including right here in South Carolina. This has gone on with Republicans as a supermajority in the state of South Carolina as a red state. We've allowed this sort of thing to go on and fester. If we don't nip it in the bud, it's going to be a problem. We don't want it to be one.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, good afternoon. I just have a quick question, I guess. How do you reconcile your claim for conservative values and adherence to constitutional principles with a president who is so willing to bend and defy constitutional precedents, such as the unilateral liquidation of executive agencies or enslaving of tariffs without congressional action?
What's the question again?
How do you reconcile your claim for adherence to constitutional principles with a president who is so willing to bend and defy constitutional precedents?
I don't believe President Trump is doing anything unconstitutional. In fact, I agree with everything he's done as president. I love his executive orders. I don't think they can be implemented fast enough. I think he's doing an incredible job, and I hope he fires a lot of bureaucrats over the next couple of days when the government is shut down, not displace we were spending way too much money. We're borrowing money from China to pay for U.S. projects. We've got to stop doing it. It's a national security problem. So I'm all in. I like to say I'm Trump in high heels, and I went them all the way.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
My name is Ryan Morrison. Thanks for coming today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I'm a senior. I'm getting ready to go out to seminary school next semester. I've been really trying to focus on inspiring people and giving them hope in a lot of these dark times right now. I've been emboldened after everything with Charlie. You know, it's heartbreaking, but I wanted to pick up his mantle and continue on, and I've seen that a lot through a lot of my other students as well. What would you say to somebody who is lacking some of that inspiration and is really in a deep, dark hole right now as far as what our country looks like and what the future could be? How would you inspire them?
Get off the internet. I would take them outside, go touch some grass, take your shoes off, like, put your toes in the sand. I mean, truly, like getting back in the environment. I don't know what happened. At some point, we took a left turn somewhere, and we turned online rooms. Like, I used to be a Reddit fiend. I used to go on Reddit and hit refresh all the time, just even 5 years ago, 8 years ago. I can't go on there anymore because it's just so nasty. Don't look me up on Reddit. Don't. It's a rabbit hole you will not come out of. It's awful. But it didn't used to be that way. And I think that, you know, we have these online environments and they're not real. And we have people that are, you know, detached from reality, maybe don't have a good home life, or, you know, don't have close friends, that loneliness. And then people all of a sudden, now you got a furry on your hands. You got someone who thinks that, you know, they need to be in a dress in the women's locker room terrorizing a 12-year-old little girl. Like, no. And for me, I think it's social media has caused this. The fact that, I'm glued to my phone all the damn time. But especially for our young people, and I think my thing is, you got stuck in COVID. You couldn't leave your house. You couldn't go to school. And you went to college to get a degree that may not matter in 5 years because of AI. You can't get the job you want in the degree that you have. College costs too much. And there is, I think, a lot of loss for hope. But I think it's really getting back into community and actually talking to people. Having this conversation, wearing a Trump hat but hating Trump. Like, I think that's great. Like, you know, I don't mind it. But you showed up and you asked a question. Yeah, I like it. I'm here for it. But like, just having this community time, we're all human. And we're not doing this. And that's the beauty of Turning Point. That's the beauty of Charlie Kirk's legacy. The other thing that I've been doing in the last couple of years is I bring people to church. And I'm not going to call them stray cats, but I mean, like, I bring people to church. And I don't bring the saints. I bring the sinners. I bring the people who need to hear the word, because at some point we all do. And I even have Psalm 23, don't tell my mom, tattooed on my finger there so no one can see it, to remind me of where I come from and that he's always going to be there for me. And there are people that are yearning for something. They don't know what they're yearning for. I do think they're yearning for a faith or for God's word, because with church and with faith, synagogue, whatever it is, that brings stability. And we're lacking that right now. We're lacking each having dinners with each other. I mean, I got a member of my family, because I support Trump, will not talk to me. And I think it's stupid. I won't say the R word, but it is. But it's very, very regarded. Like, it's just, you won't talk to me because I support someone you voted against. Okay, that doesn't make any sort of sense. We've lost that human connection. And I mean it truly, like, you get outside, you walk barefoot, you know, touching grass is a thing.
Thank you.
Get it.
We're going to take a quick 10-second
Oh, we don't. I totally missed that.
All right, heads up, guys. We're going to go to a 2-minute break here quickly. We'll go back to this Turning Point event on Clemson's campus once we return in 2 minutes. All right, folks, thanks for joining us again here on WCNC Plus. There's a Turning Point event happening right now on Clemson's campus, so we're going to go to this live event happening in real time.
Government shutdown, part of that has been revolving around issues regarding healthcare. What are your current opinions on the state of healthcare in this country, and do you have any plans for ways that we can either improve or rework the Affordable Care Act?
Well, big pharma and big medical lobbyists have ruined the healthcare system. Let me tell you that right away. I mean, the reason that the pricing is
All right, folks, we're going to wait for this shot to fix itself here, having some technical difficulties. There's been a lot of questions asked by students here on Clemson's campus. Looks like we are going to lose that shot right now. So we're going to take, it's back up again. If we lose it again, we'll go to a quick break and try to fix things. We'll go back to this Turning Point USA event happening in real time.
Awful contracts and then suck up competition. So lack of competition, a lack of transparency. We ought to know what drug prices are going to be when we get up there, and the availability of generics should be for everybody. Previous to the ACA, I was working for myself, and I had 2 kids, and the father of my kids, he was working for himself. For a family of 4 to get on COBRA, it was $1,500 a month. Not affordable. That was crazy. So we went without insurance for a year. One kid broke an elbow, of course. Another one had to have stitches in their face. I got, this is Murphy's Law, I got diagnosed with a pre-existing condition. Now, I did all the math. That year, when I went to the hospital, I negotiated everything in cash. I had it. $5,000 for a family of 4. That's what we spent in cash, including vaccines.
All right, guys, having some more issues with this live event. We're going to cut away for now. Can always record this and play it back for you when we need to. But we are going to go to a press conference at the White House that happened earlier today. A lot of this is going to be about the government shutdown. Vice President J.D. Vance standing with Caroline Leavitt, the top press person for the White House. Let's go to the briefing now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Packed house here today, and I have a very special guest with us, the Vice President of the United States. He'll deliver some remarks and take some questions. First, I just want to share remarks of my own. Democrats in Congress have officially shut down the United States government. House Republicans passed a nonpartisan, clean piece of legislation to extend current government funding until November 21st. But nearly every single Democrat senator voted against this bill. To be clear, this was the exact same bill that Democrats approved 6 short months ago in March, just adjusted for inflation. This is the same kind of clean funding bill that Democrats passed 13 separate times when they held the majority during Joe Biden's administration. So the American people woke up this morning and asked the obvious question: why is the government shut down right now? The answer is pure partisan politics being played by the Democrat Party. The Democrats shut down the government because President Trump and the Republicans will not force American taxpayers to pay for free health care for illegal aliens. America is $37 trillion in debt. We cannot afford to provide taxpayer-funded free health care to illegals who broke the law to enter our country. To put this all into perspective, the Democrats refused to keep the government open over health care to illegal aliens and now have jeopardized critical health care programs for American citizens instead. The Women, Infants, and Children program, community health center funding, Medicare treatment options, and other health programs are now all at risk because of the Democrats rejecting the clean CR. The most vulnerable in our country are being punished because the Democrats want to prioritize illegals over American citizens. And if Democrats actually cared about health care, they would applaud the actions taken by President Trump just yesterday in the Oval Office. He took a bold and massively popular unpopular action to improve our healthcare system. He announced the first agreement with a major pharmaceutical company, Pfizer, to lower drug costs for Americans. This is a historical achievement long sought by past Democrat presidents that only President Trump was able to get done. Also yesterday, while the Democrats were whining about health care for illegal aliens, President Trump signed a powerful executive order to supercharge American AI innovation and unlock cures for pediatric cancer patients in the United States. While President Trump took action to lower drug prices and improve the lives and the care of American children with cancer, again, Democrats are fighting to give health care benefits to illegal aliens. The Trump administration is fully committed to lowering health care costs and advancing policies that will save American lives. But right now, we need to keep the government open and funded. And individuals and organizations across the political spectrum, across the country, agree with the Trump administration and Republicans. The labor union leader, the Teamsters, Sean O'Brien, sent a very blunt message to Democrats over their destructive antics. He said American workers are not bargaining chips. Senators need to stop screwing around and pass the House-passed clean short-term funding bill. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the world's largest business organization, called to immediately pass the Republican Clean CR, saying, quote, shutdowns are harmful to the economy, the American people, and our national security. And even Democrat Senators Cortez Masto and Fetterman acknowledged that their party is betraying the American people with this costly and chaotic Democrat shutdown. Enough is enough. Democrats need to stop sabotaging our country and holding the American people hostage in the country. Democrats need to do their jobs. The American people want the government reopened, and this is proven in a New York Times poll showing that 2 in 3 Americans say the government should not be shut down by the Democrats, even if their absurd demands are not met. The president and Republicans are working very hard to reopen the federal government. The vice president here has been crucial in this effort. We encourage all Americans across the country, call your Democrat senators and encourage them to reopen the government. That's what President Trump and the vice president want to do. And with that, I will turn it over to our great vice president, J.D. Vance.
Great. Well, thank you, Carolina, and good afternoon to everybody, and good afternoon to everybody who's watching at home. It's a tough act to follow, but let me just say a few things, and then I'll take a few questions. Number one, Democrats say that they care a lot about lowering health care costs, and yet, when the president took historic action to work with the drug companies to lower prescription drug prices, the Democrats did nothing to help us. In fact, we would have loved to have the Democrats helping us, but they didn't. They talk about doing something. They don't actually do the hard work of making it happen. What they have done instead is to shut down the government because we won't give billions of dollars to health care funding for illegal aliens. That is what has actually happened. To the American people who are watching, the reason your government is shut down at this very minute is because, despite the fact that the overwhelming majority of congressional Republicans and even a few moderate Democrats supported opening the government, the Chuck Schumer AOC wing of the Democratic Party shut down the government because they said to us, we will open the government, but only if you give billions of dollars of funding for health care for illegal aliens. That's a ridiculous proposition. Let me say two other quick things, and then again, I'll take some questions. Number one, we all understand that Democrats and Republicans have policy disagreements. The Democrats want to do things. Look, when Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries were in here a couple of days ago, they made some suggestions that the president was more than happy to say, yes, let's sit down and talk about how we can solve the health care crisis that we inherited from the Biden administration. But it's one thing to say that we should solve the health care crisis for Americans. It's another thing to say that we're going to shut down the government unless we give the Democrats every single thing that they want, which, as Caroline says, includes giving billions of dollars of taxpayer funding for health care for illegal migrants. That's ridiculous. You don't have policy disagreements that serve as the basis for a government shutdown. Let's have the conversation about how to fix American health care, about how to make health care more accessible. As the president showed, he's more than willing to act on behalf of the American people for this very reason. What you don't do is say, unless you do exactly what we want to do as congressional Democrats, we're taking a hostage. And the hostage, it turns out, is critical, essential services that the American people need. Caroline talked about some of it. Let me talk about some more. Our troops are not getting paid starting today because of the Chuck Schumer wing of the Democratic Party. We have people who require food assistance, low-income Americans who require food assistance, who will not get it unless we reopen the government, thanks to Chuck Schumer and his wing of the Democratic Party. We have flood insurance as we start hurricane season in the southeastern part of our country. That flood insurance is going to disappear because of Chuck Schumer and the far left of the Democratic Party. We need to reopen the government. Let's fix America's problems. Let's work together to solve them. But let's reopen the government before we have our negotiation about health care policy. That's what the American people demand, and that's certainly what the President of the United States wants. Let me make one final point. I think a lot of Americans are asking themselves, why did this happen? Why did the Democrats shut down the government despite, as Caroline said, voting on the exact same piece of legislation 6 months ago? And there are a lot of different spins that we can put on it, a lot of different answers that we could give, all of them true. One answer I already gave is that they want to give health care benefits to illegal aliens. That is true. They gave us legislative text that would have undone us cutting off health care benefits for illegal aliens. That's one of the things that they asked for. But the reality here, and let's be honest about the politics, is that Chuck Schumer is terrified she's going to get a primary challenge from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The reason why the American people's government is shut down is because Chuck Schumer is listening to the far left radicals in his own party because he's terrified of a primary challenge. So I'd invite Chuck Schumer to join the moderate Democrats and 52 Senate Republicans, do the right thing, open up the people's government, and then let's fix health care policy for the American people. Questions?
Mr. Vice President.
That's a lot. Matt Boyle.
Okay. Mr. Vice President, there's two key Democrat lies I would like to get your take on and see if you can address. The first is that you're seeing a number of top Democrat leaders, from Kamala Harris to Chuck Schumer to Hakeem Jeffries, claim that it is a Republican shutdown caused by Trump. The second is that they're out there now claiming that they don't want to give health care to illegal aliens. Can you address both of those lies from the Democrat Party?
Yeah, so on the point that it's a Republican shutdown, look, it's obviously a Democratic shutdown. Just look at the vote totals in the House, look at the vote totals in the Senate, and look at the President of the United States' own action and conduct throughout this crisis. Nearly every single House Republican voted to open the government, Matt. Nearly every single Senate Republican voted to open the government last night, and even to their credit, a few moderate Democrats voted to open the government. That's not a Republican shutdown when nearly every single Senate Democrat votes to shut it down and every Republican voted to open it up. It's just obviously not true. Now, you can disagree about a number of things, but you can't disagree about the obvious fact that Republicans voted to open the government. The president stands ready to sign that opening of the government. We just need a few more Democrats to join us in that effort to open the government. Your final question about illegal alien benefits. Look, the text is very clear, and I even saw, I think it was George Stephanopoulos in an interview with Mike Johnson, did a fact check that was totally rooted in baseless claims. It was basically Democrat propaganda. If you look at the legislative text that they gave us, they tried to turn on two separate provisions that would give health care benefits to illegal aliens. Number one, if you're an American citizen, you've been to a hospital in the last few years, you probably noticed that wait times are especially large, and very often somebody who's there in the emergency room waiting is an illegal alien, very often a person who can't even speak English. Why do those people get health care benefits at hospitals paid for by American citizens? The answer is a decision made by the Biden administration that the Trump administration, working with congressional Republicans, undid. We turned off that money spigot to health care funding for illegal aliens. The Democrats, in their legislative text, want to turn it back on. That's one thing. The second thing, Matt, is we all know that there are various ways in which the Biden administration waved away illegal immigration status. They gave parolees, they gave asylum claims to people who weren't really claiming asylum. And when they waved the magic wand of amnesty, giving millions of people legal status even though they were in the country illegally, they also gave those people access to health care benefits. So what the Democrats are engaging in is a sleight of hand. They're saying, no. Those weren't illegal aliens who were getting health care benefits, even though everybody, knows they were in the country illegally. It's a lie told by the Democrats that they're not trying to give health care benefits to illegal aliens. It's a lie that is obviously untrue if you just look at the text that they gave us, and all you have to do is understand that this is about who benefits. We think the American people's government ought to benefit American citizens. The Democrats are willing to shut it down to benefit illegal aliens. The contrast couldn't be more clear. Peter.
Thank you, Vice President Vance. The big holdup is, of course, that you guys say illegal immigrants are getting taxpayer-funded health care. Democrats say you're lying. That makes it feel like it could be a really long shutdown. Is this going to be a long shutdown?
I don't know. I can't predict what congressional Democrats are going to do, Peter, but I actually don't think it's going to be that long of a shutdown. This is a pure guess from the Vice President of the United States because I think you already saw some evidence that moderate Democrats are cracking a little bit. They understand the fundamental illogic of this. Look, for years, every single one of us, we can remember Barack Obama on the White House lawn. We can remember Chuck Schumer. We can remember, Nancy Pelosi. For years, in Chuck Schumer's case, for literally decades, we've heard them say you don't shut the government down over policy disagreement. Okay, Republicans think this thing about health care, that thing about health care. Democrats think this thing about immigration. Republicans disagree. Whatever those disagreements are, you don't shut down the government over it. For the first time since the Democrats have been in politics, they're now saying that unless we get every policy item that we demand, we're going to shut down the people's government. They're trying to take a hostage, and we're not going to let them.
And the administration announced today that $18 billion bound for New York transportation projects is going to be frozen so it can't go to DEI programs there. But the timing of this, does announcing that today mean that you guys are going to squeeze Chuck Schumer's home state until he blinks?
Look, I haven't talked to Russ about this morning, but look, I'm sure that Russ is heartbroken about the fact that he's unable to give certain things to certain constituencies. We want to do everything that we can to help the American people, but when the Democrats shut down the government, we have to actually do a little triage to make sure the most critical and most essential services are provided. The government does a lot of things. Of course, Republicans think that the federal government probably does too much, but there are a lot of critical things the federal government does that absolutely all of us would agree need to do. Our troops need to get paid. Our air traffic controllers need to make sure that people are flying safely and on time. We need low-income people to be able to access the food services that are provided by the federal government. There are critical things that need to be saved. We're going to do everything that we can over the coming weeks, if the shutdown lasts that long, to ensure that people get the essential services that they need, despite the fact that Chuck Schumer has shut down the federal government. It's not going to be perfect because we are in a government shutdown. We are going to have to lay some people off if the shutdown continues. We don't like that. We don't necessarily want to do it, but we're going to do what we have to keep the American people's essential services continuing to run.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, and thank you for being here. Yesterday, President Trump said, as a result of the shutdown, we'll be laying off a lot of people that are going to be very affected, and the Democrats, they are going to be Democrats. Has the administration asked agencies to target federal workers who they believe to be Democrats in these reductions of forces?
We're not targeting federal agencies based on politics. We're targeting the people's government so that as much as possible of the essential services can continue to function. That is the question the president has asked the entire government, is fundamentally, okay, we're in a shutdown. That causes some problems. The troops aren't getting paid. There's nothing that we can do about that while the government is shut down. But there are essential services that we want to make sure as much as possible they still continue to function. That is the principle that's driving us forward during this shutdown. It's going to continue to be the principle that drives us forward. But let's be honest, if this thing drags on for another few days or God forbid another few weeks, we are going to have to lay people off. We're going to have to save money in some places so that essential services don't get turned off in other places. That is the reality of the government shutdown that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats have foisted upon the administration.
So what did he mean by they're going to be Democrats? He said they're going to be Democrats.
You've laid out a lot of the pain and problems that would come with a Democratic shutdown, and yet in the Oval Office yesterday, the president said that a lot of good could come from a shutdown. So square that circle. Which is it, a Democratic-caused crisis or a Republican opportunity for reform?
Well, I think all the president is saying, Phil, is that he wants to make sure the American people's government functions as well as it can, despite the fact that we're in a shutdown. We're going to have to make things work, and that means that we're going to have to triage some certain things. That means certain people are going to have to get laid off, and we're going to try to make sure that the American people suffer as little as possible from this shutdown. That's what the president is saying, is that yes, this is a bad thing. Obviously, the president is trying to reopen the government, but we're going to make things work as well as we possibly can, given the constraints that we have.
And then on those policy differences for the discussion and the negotiations to come later, during the Biden administration, Democrats twice voted to expand these Affordable Care Act tax credits, but those were supposed supposed to be temporary, and they were slated to expire at the end of the year. As you sort of crack the door open to negotiation at a later date, would the party that ran on defunding Obamacare really negotiate about potentially expanding Obamacare?
Well, Phil, what we've said to the Democrats is that we're willing to have a conversation about how to ensure that Americans continue to have access to health care, and frankly, they should have access to better health care at a lower cost. We inherited a mess of a health care system from the Biden administration. It's why the president has worked so hard on the most favored nation status for prescription drugs. It's why we care so much about lowering the cost of prescriptions and why we're doing everything else. We're willing to have that conversation, but I think it's important to bracket the health care policy conversation because it's separate from the government shutdown. We think that we can open the government and then have the conversation about what best health care policy to fit the needs of the American people. That's all we're trying to do. That's all we're trying to accomplish. We've got to reopen the government first. Now, Caroline, I don't know how you do this, how you actually choose people, because I don't know 90% of the names in here. Is it just who's the best dressed? Okay, I really like your shirt. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. You are president of the Senate. Can you talk about what you're doing, what the administration is doing to try to get other Senate Democrats to vote to open the government?
Yeah, we're talking to a number of our colleagues, Democratic and Republican, in the Senate. I talked to a number of them last night. The president, of course, is talking to them as well. I think there really are two categories of demands that I've seen privately from congressional Democrats. I think on the one hand, those who are negotiating in good faith are saying, look, we just want to make sure that we're able to have a conversation with the administration about some of the critical needs that we see that need to get fixed over the next few months. We recognize it's kind of absurd, and a lot of them will admit in private that it's kind of absurd to shut down the people's government over these disagreements, but just agree to negotiate with us in good faith on these issues, and of course we're having that conversation with them. Then there's another category, people who say, give us everything we want or we're going to keep the government shut down. We just write those people off because they're not negotiating in good faith, and frankly we don't need them. We've already got 3 more Democrats last night than I thought we would get, and I think it's because they recognize the illogic of the position of taking the entire American economy hostage because they don't get their policy priorities. So 3 moderate Democrats joined 52 Republicans last night. We need 5 more in order to reopen the government, and that's really where we're going to focus, is how to get those 5 additional Democrats.
Thanks, Mr. Vice President. First, 2 questions. Are there plans to meet Democratic leaders again in the coming days, or are you planning on plucking off senators one by one?
So that's the whole question?
No, I got a second part.
Okay, go ahead and ask the second question.
So the president's been posting some images of Leader Jeffries and Senator Schumer.
I saw.
Recently. You've said that you're interested in good faith negotiations with these leaders, but what message does that send? Is it helpful to post pictures of Leader Jeffries in a sombrero if you're trying to have good faith talks with him?
Oh, I think it's funny. The president's joking, and we're having a good time. You can negotiate in good faith while also poking a little bit of fun at some of the absurdities of the Democrats' positions, and even poking some fun at the absurdity of the Democrats themselves. I mean, I'll tell Hakeem Jeffries right now, I make this solemn promise to you that if you help us reopen the government, the sombrero memes will stop. And I've talked to the President of the United States about that. Now, to your first question, are we negotiating one-on-one? Are we negotiating in groups? Look, I will go to the U.S. Capitol right now and meet with Chuck Schumer or any Senate Democrat if it helps us reopen the government. Most of the conversations, in my experience at least, have been one-off. We're also, of course, relying on some of our Senate Republican colleagues who have good relationships across the aisle. We're going to do whatever we have to do is the answer, and I think it's tough to predict what shape this negotiation is going to take over the next few months, but I feel good about the fact that Democrats already realize privately the fundamental irrationality of their position. I hope that they're going to publicly acknowledge it and reopen the government. The guy in the back, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. You responded to a post on X of Chuck Schumer on the House floor back in 1996, railing against illegal immigrants receiving taxpayer-funded benefits. You said Chuck Schumer once recognized that it was disastrous to give illegal aliens rewards for breaking the law. Now he wants to shut down the government unless we reward illegal aliens for breaking the law. Why has Chuck Schumer changed his stance?
That's a good question. Actually, it's a very tough question. Asking me to get in the head of Chuck Schumer is not a place I particularly want to be, but my basic read on it is that that the entire Democratic Party, the political leadership, not every Democrat nationwide, but the political leadership of their party has got it into their heads that the only way to be compassionate is to be compassionate to illegal aliens rather than American citizens. If you go back to what Bill Clinton was saying, even Barack Obama in some cases, what he was saying about illegal immigration 10, 15, 20 years ago, you would put them on the MAGA right based purely on their rhetoric around illegal immigration. So I don't know why they've gone so far to the left. I think it's bad for the country. I think it's bad for them politically. But our principle, all I can do is speak for the president that I serve and the country, the administration that I serve right now. We believe that the American people's government exists for the American people. That means the people who have the legal right to be here, and that's why we're fighting to reopen the government. And unfortunately, the Democrats are fighting to shut it down for the benefit of illegal aliens. And I'll take a couple more, and then I'll let Caroline. I'll go back to my day job so Caroline can go back to hers. All right. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Just going back to the sombrero, you said that the president is joking, but Hakeem Jeffries says that these memes were racist. What's your response to that? And just if I may briefly go off topic, Secretary Hegseth yesterday made an edict about no more beardos in the military. Just wondered what.
Sorry, what did he say?
No more beardos. Beards. Oh, sorry, it's my accent. Just wondered your response to that.
I didn't see that particular comment. I thought Pete gave a hell of a speech, and a speech that really is just oriented around returning the American military to the very high standards that it has had for virtually its entire history until Joe Biden came along and decided to lower standards. I think it was bad for our military, and it was bad for our troops. When I was a young United States Marine, I did not have a beard. I am now the vice president, so I get to do what I want to do. But I think Pete's trying to re-implement high standards, and that's a very good thing. On the sombrero thing, I mean, Hakeem Jeffries said it was racist, and I know that he said that, and I honestly don't even know what that means. Like, is he a Mexican American that is offended by having a sombrero meme? I mean, I saw one of the major TV stations put the meme up and then say, this is AI generated. And he had like the curly animated mustache too. It's like, do you really not realize the American people recognize that he did not actually come to the White House wearing a sombrero and a black curly animation mustache? Like, give the country a little bit of credit. We're all trying to do a very important job for the American people. The President of the United States likes to have a little bit of fun when he's doing it, and I think that's okay. I'll take one more question.
Mr. Vice President, in every previous shutdown, workers have been furloughed, not laid off. So why does the president want to fire some workers and not just furlough them? Why is this shutdown any different?
Well, first of all, we haven't made any final decisions about what we're going to do with certain workers. What we're saying is that we might have to take extraordinary steps, especially the longer this goes on. We're going to have to take extraordinary measures to ensure the people's government operates, again, not perfectly, because it's not going to operate perfectly in the midst of a shutdown, but operate as well as it possibly can. And I think that the Democrats, if they're so worried about the effect this is having on the American people, and they should be, what they should do is reopen the government, not complain about how we respond to the fact that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats have shut down the government in the first place. Thank you all.
Also
Caroline.
going to target some benefits, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you.
Should
See you
Americans
guys.
prepare for their benefits to be cut as well?
All right, guys. Well, let's let the fun continue. The Vice President's a very busy man, and I'm happy to take some more questions. I know there's more news today. Aside from the shutdown, we can focus on the shutdown if you want, but let's go ahead. Kate, why don't you start?
The president talked about doing things that he said were irreversible during the shutdown, cutting vast numbers of people, he said, and cutting programs. Can you specify what exactly he was referring to, what's on the table and what's going to be cut?
Look, I think the Vice President just referred to this in some of the answers that he gave regarding the layoffs. There are unfortunate consequences to a government shutdown, and the federal government is not receiving any cash at the moment. And so the Office of Management and Budget has been tasked with looking over the receipts and looking over the budget of the entire federal bureaucracy, and as the Vice President said, determining what needs to continue to go out the door and what can we continue to keep running, and what unfortunately is going to have to come to an end. So those decisions are being made, and unfortunately layoffs are very likely, as the Vice President just said, going to be a part of that.
And has the White House had any direct response from Hamas from the peace proposal that was laid out? The President said he would give 3 or 4 days, but is there a hard deadline now, or what are the next steps here?
I will reiterate what the President of the United States said, 3 or 4 days, and I can tell you that there are some very sensitive discussions that are taking place, but I certainly don't want to get ahead of any announcement at this podium. I'm going to let Special Envoy Witkoff and the President of the United States handle that.
Thank you, Caroline. 2 questions. First of all, following up on that, the President said yesterday, I believe, within 3 or 4 days he wanted to hear an answer from Hamas. Does he still sticking by that timeline?
Yes, as I just confirmed.
And then second question is a comment that's gotten a lot of global attention. Senator Dick Durbin, he was set to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Catholic Church. He's since declined accepting it because there has been some controversy. Pope Leo commented on this, and he said that someone who says I'm against abortion, but I'm in agreement with the inhumane treatment of immigrants in the United States, I don't know if that's pro-life. You've been very open about your Catholic faith. How do you respond to that?
I would reject there is inhumane treatment of illegal immigrants in the United States under this administration. There was, however, significant inhumane treatment of illegal immigrants in the previous administration as they were being trafficked and raped and beaten, and in many cases killed, over our United States southern border. You also look at the inhumane treatment at the hands of some of these illegal immigrants that took place under the previous administration as well. Laken Riley comes to mind, a beautiful American citizen who was killed at the hands of an illegal immigrants. So this administration is trying to enforce our nation's laws in the most humane way possible, and we're upholding the law, and we're doing that on the behalf of the people of our country who live here.
Josh. Thanks a lot, Caroline. What is the level of concern that the administration has regarding a protracted government shutdown in terms of its impact on the U.S. economy and also its impact on small businesses as well?
Well, look, this government shutdown is no doubt going to impact everyday Americans, and it is the fault of the Democrats that we are in this position. And I know I relayed some programs that will be impacted, the Vice President did as well, but I just want to make sure the American public understand what the Democrats have done to our government and our country. 1.3 million active duty troops will work now without pay. Critical food assistance for low-income women, infants, and children will now lapse. No new mothers or children are allowed to join this critical program because of the Democrats' decision to shut down the government. Telehealth services for seniors and in-home treatment options for Medicare patients will now come to an end. Nearly 50,000 members of the United States Coast Guard are going to have to work unpaid. Over 13,000 air traffic controllers will work without pay, as well as TSA agents, which will very likely create flight disruptions. And pay will now stop for over 150,000 federal law enforcement officers. These are not just numbers and statistics. These are real Americans who have families at home. And I saw some Democrat members today saying they're still going to accept their paychecks because they have 3 kids at home and they have mouths to feed. Well, so do these federal workers who those same Democrats just voted to shut down the government and turn off their pay. And we believe that's very unfair, and it's why the administration wants to see the government reopened.
GDP growth fell by about 0.5 percentage point during the last government shutdown during the president's first term. Are you expecting a similar type of impact on GDP growth related to this potential protracted government shutdown?
Well, look, I think it's dependent upon how long this shutdown continues. So it's dependent on how long it takes Democrats to muster up the coverage, 5 of them, to vote in the best interest of our country, our citizens, and our economy. Eamon.
Thank you, Caroline. Yesterday, your administration took a 5% stake in Lithium Americas and a stake in the mine that they're working on, and you've taken stakes in other companies and revenue streams from other companies. Can you articulate the broader principle here? When does the administration see it as appropriate to demand equity stakes or revenue streams from American companies? And what other companies are you going to be demanding those from?
Well, look, this is a creative solution by the President of the United States to tackle our nation's crippling debt crisis. As I said earlier, we are $37 trillion, trillion with a T, in debt. And not only is the President effectively utilizing tariffs to bring in massive amounts of revenue, and there's billions of dollars coming in every month. I know you know that, even, because you cover it on CNBC quite well. So the President is focused on how can the United States government make more money? How can we make our country wealthy and rich again? And cutting some of these unique creative deals with companies around the world and here at home is just one way the President is seeking to do that. And I know the Department of Energy just announced this new deal. It's another great deal for the American people and our government.
And on Lisa Cook,
sure, go ahead.
Lisa Cook,
Yeah.
the Supreme Court said today that she's going to be allowed to stay at the Federal Reserve Board until oral arguments in January. Does the President have any personal reaction to that? This has been something he's been very intent on.
Look, we have respect for the Supreme Court, but they're going to hear the actual case and make a determination on the legal argument in January. And we look forward to that because we maintain that she was fired well within the president's legal authority to do so. She was removed from the board, and we look forward to that case being fully played out at the Supreme Court. Reagan.
I have one for you on EJ and Tony and one on the shutdown. Sure. CNN reported that Collins and Murkowski declined to meet with EJ and Tony, raising concerns that his nomination was in trouble. I'm wondering what message Collins and Murkowski are sending to the White House by not meeting with one of the president's nominees.
Well, look, EJ Antony remains a great ally of the president and our team. It became clear, unfortunately, that he was not going to have the votes, and so we will be announcing a replacement nominee very soon.
And on the shutdown, I'm just wondering how soon you could see cuts to the federal workplace, and if there's a specific agency that will experience the most cuts or be focused.
Unfortunately, because the Democrats shut down the government, the president has directed his cabinet, and the Office of Management and Budget is working with agencies across the board to identify where cuts can be made, and we believe that layoffs are imminent. They are, unfortunately, a consequence of this government shutdown. Ed.
Thanks, Carolyn. So you talk about the layoffs being imminent. Is there a percentage then of reduction that the White House is looking for of workforce?
I don't have a specific percentage for you.
Can I ask what about China, if I could? So China has not made one soybean purchase this year in the United States. I talked to a farmer yesterday who has about 1,000 acres in Iowa and says this is just killing her. Now, the president has been talking to President Xi. Could China not buying agriculture affect a possible meeting with the president? Would he not meet with Xi because China has refused to buy soybeans from the U.S.?
Look, I don't want to speak for the president and make a determination on that from this podium, but what I can tell you is that supporting America's farmers and doing what's best for them is at the top of the president's priority list, and it's at the top of the list for this administration right now. There have been several very high-level meetings on this very topic. We want to help our farmers, and we're exploring the best ways to do that, and I would anticipate there will be more to come on that very soon.
You can send a message to the Chinese president.
Look, I just shared that message. The president wants what's best for America's farmers. Sean.
Hi, Carolyn.
Hi.
Two things to ask you about.
Sure.
First thing, I want to ask about this.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick 2-minute break, and we're going to have Siobhan Riley on the other side to talk more about this York County investigation where 11 arrests were made today in a child sexual exploitation investigation. We'll be back in 2 minutes. All right, everyone, thanks for coming back here. As we promised, we're going to talk a little bit more about this York County investigation. I'll give you a little bit of background before we ask Siobhan Riley to join us here in just a second. But today it was announced that 11 individuals were arrested in a multi-agency operation. There were 2 separate proactive online child sex investigations going on. It happened in August and September. And it's called Operation Huntsman. It involved 20 to 40 different officers at any given time, monitoring social media platforms for any internet crimes against children. So this was a big operation that obviously yielded some big results as well. So we'll bring in Siobhan Riley now. Siobhan, I know that you're not necessarily covering what happened today, the 11 arrests, but maybe the afterthought and the follow-up to today's stories, which is for parents to be reminded that they have to be involved these days, especially with all the social media apps. I mean, I know it. I have kids, and it is so easy if you don't have parental locks on certain things for them to find themselves on sites that they shouldn't be on. So let's just start with what law enforcement is telling you and reminding parents to think about going forward.
Colin, Tony Breeden made it very clear in that press conference that parents really need to pay attention to what their children are doing online. He stresses parents need to have access to their children's cell phones. They're actually calling this an epidemic, calling this a serious issue. And one of the things he says, parents, they get too comfortable. They think, oh, my child is just watching or playing this game or watching YouTube. And the same way the parent is getting comfortable, that's when the criminal is coming in. These predators are targeting children. And so really, he just says the bottom line is you have to pay attention to your children's every move. You have to talk to your children about online safety, but you have to monitor them.
Yeah. Did he offer any suggestions in terms of specific advice? You know, like I said, there's parental locks and certain things. Sometimes, though, those change depending on the website. And honestly, it can be really an afterthought, right, to go to those sites and click on those parental guidance or parental supervision type of options. Did he talk about that at all today?
He talked a lot about warning signs, things that parents need to look out for, such as excessive excessive interest, in children, secretive behavior, and frequent isolation with the child. And he just kind of said that you have to look at YouTube videos on your kids' channels and really just make sure that you don't assume that there is not evil out there. Yeah. So really the main thing is just really paying attention, checking their phones, making sure that you have access to their every move.
Yeah, it was an interesting discussion that I heard as well. I heard that Mr. Breeden and I think another prosecutor discuss how in York County they're really trying to take a stance against this, and I thought it was interesting that he said this has become more mainstream and that people seem to be okay with it because of how certain investigations have gone prior to this. They're putting an end to that and making sure that criminals realize this is a heinous thing that people are doing, and they're going to spend a long time in jail for it. It sounds like they're coming after these people quite hard, right?
Yeah, and that's why they're calling this an epidemic, and they say there's other people who could be responsible in this. They haven't caught those criminals yet. They're looking for them. But again, to call something an epidemic, that's when you know it's a major problem.
Yeah. I did, just by reading some of your story, and I don't want to give too much away. I got to give you credit. Obviously, it's tough to get man on the street type of sound in this type of situation. It's a very sensitive topic for a lot of parents. Certainly it is for me in our household, just because we know the dangers, that linger out there, and the folks that really have the time on their hands to try and catch children up, which is just crazy to think about. But parents that you spoke to, what did they have to say about this? I can only imagine fear probably was one of the biggest things discussed.
Definitely fear, because the parent I spoke with, he has 2 13-year-old twins, and he has a 16-year-old. And he says his 16-year-old has even been a victim. And he says that his 16-year-old, all daughters, the oldest daughter has learned so many life lessons that she passes along to her younger siblings. Yeah. And even today, I was interviewing him while one of his daughters was at soccer practice. And you think about where a lot of these criminals, a lot of these predators head to. They look at parks, sometimes they could be preying on your child at soccer practice or at basketball practice. So as he was out there, he was with his child, watching her as she was practicing. But it was really interesting to hear how his oldest daughter was a victim, and he said it's a conversation they do not shy away from in their household because he wants his kids to be protected.
Yeah. And it's, as you alluded to, people take advantage of those vulnerabilities with children and play off of that, which is why I think in social media and then on the internet, it's so easy to play into this. People can act however they want to, right, without any really accountability. But it does obviously, bring to mention that there are a lot of folks that are watching for these type of crimes now. And clearly in our area, we've seen, just in the last couple of, even this bus driver, the allegations against this charter bus driver, this seems to be happening a little bit more often than we would like to admit. And obviously, law enforcement, they're catching on. So anything else that you wanted to make people aware of, tonight going forward? Anything else that kind of poked out in your mind?
I think the bottom line, the sheriff said it over and over again, why it's so important for parents to really pay attention. I can speak firsthand. I have 2 nieces, and they always have their phones on them. But their parents, my brother, his wife, they are very protective. They have settings. They can't even do anything without them knowing exactly what they're doing. And I think you have to, if you're not paying attention, then your child could become a victim. And so the goal is we don't want the children to become victims to this senseless crime.
Right. And I always say, right, to talk a little bit more about this in the home. I know you have to be careful of ages, but the more often you can talk about situations like this and bring it up, obviously it leads to trust between a parent, and their daughter or even their son, right? But it is something that we as parents need to be aware of, and then obviously need to be bringing to light more often than not, because it is something that, as we're saying, is being seen more often as well. So Siobhan Riley reporting tonight. See her story tonight at 11 o'clock. And then if you missed that, we'll have it on WCNC.com as well. Siobhan, thanks so much. We appreciate you gathering that information. And it is so important, because then sometimes these type of issues can lead to human trafficking and on down the line. So things that we really need to shine a light on.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go and take a 2-minute break again, folks. Reset ourselves, and we'll come right back after this. All right, folks, we are back, and we are going to play the Democrats' response to some of the shutdown information that came not only from Vice President J.D. Vance, from other senators who fall on the Republican side. I think Leader Hakeem Jeffries is going to speak first, so we'll go to this right now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello. At midnight, Donald Trump and Republicans shut the federal government down because They don't want to provide health care to working class Americans. Leader Schumer and myself met with President Trump and legislative leaders on Monday. We had a conversation that was designed to avoid a painful government shutdown and address the Republican health care crisis. Subsequent to that meeting, we heard nothing from any of the legislative leaders on the Republican side, and the president has been engaging in irresponsible and unserious behavior, demonstrating that all along, Republicans wanted to shut the government down. That's no surprise, because for decades, Republicans have consistently shut the government down as part of their efforts to try to extract and jam their extreme right-wing agenda down the throats of the American people. Democrats have repeatedly made clear we are ready to sit down with anyone at any time and at any place in order now to reopen the government, to enact a spending agreement that meets the needs of the American people, and to address the devastating Republican health care crisis that has caused extraordinary harm on people all across the country, in rural America, working class America, urban America, small town America, the heartland of America, and black and brown communities throughout America. The Republican health care crisis is devastating, the likes of which no one has ever seen. Largest cut to Medicaid in American history. A possible $536 billion cut to Medicare because of the one big ugly bill, if Congress doesn't act by the end of the year. Tens of millions of Americans are about to experience dramatically increased premium, co-pays, and deductibles because of the Republican unwillingness to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. Hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health clinics are closing all across the country, including in rural America, because of what Republicans have done and the health care crisis they have triggered through their cruel actions throughout this year. Republicans have even canceled medical research in the United States of America, even as it relates to children who are battling cancer. The Republican health care crisis is immoral in nature, and Democrats are fighting hard to reverse it. Cancel the cuts, lower the costs, save health care on behalf of the American people. It's now my honor to yield to the whip, Catherine Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. We are so grateful for all that you have done and putting the American people's voice into this debate. And I've had one question from my Republican House colleagues this week. Where the heck are you? Where the heck are you? You've cut people's health care. You're giving their hard-earned tax dollars to billionaires in the form of tax breaks. And then you don't even show up to defend your own policies, your own bills. Mike Johnson and Steve Scalise are both from Louisiana. Most children in Louisiana are on Medicaid. 64% of all births in Louisiana are paid for by Medicaid. 74% of nursing home residents in Louisiana are on Medicaid. Yet Republicans are willing to shut down government, refusing to even show up for work this week because they want to cut Medicaid by $1 trillion, because they want to defund health care for children and seniors and pregnant women, because they want to pay for billionaire tax cuts. Well, Mike Johnson and Steve Scalise can fight for the billionaires. They can double down, if they so choose, on their lie about who we're fighting for. But we know who we're fighting for, and so do the American people. Democrats are fighting for families, families in Louisiana, families in Massachusetts. We're fighting for American families in every corner of this country. We're fighting for a child's right to go to the doctor, fighting for a new mom's right to have a safe delivery. We're fighting to keep millions of people from losing their insurance and keeping health premiums affordable for everybody. We're here to do our job. It is long past time that Republicans join us and end this Republican shutdown. It's now my great pleasure to yield the microphone to our chairman, Pete Aguilar.
Thank you, Whip Clark. And as we're fighting, Republicans are nowhere to be seen. Our message has been very clear. Cancel your vacation, cancel the cuts, lower the costs, fix health care. That's why we're here. Donald Trump and House Republicans have shown their true colors this week. Instead of protecting health care, they're ripping it away. 15 million people at risk of losing their health care coverage. And while we're here trying to keep the government open, the guidance from our colleagues on the other side, Lisa McClain, my counterpart, the chair of the Republican conference, instructs their members, don't talk about health care. That is their message. So while we're fighting for health care, we're fighting to keep this government open. The guidance from the GOP has been very clear. Don't talk about these issues because they know the American people are with us. Democrats have been at the negotiating table for months, and we want to work in a bipartisan way. We've always wanted to work in a bipartisan way to solve these issues. Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House. They own this crisis. They own this shutdown. And instead, they want to use people as political pawns. Russ Vought wants to lay people off. He wants to fire people. He wants to use this shutdown to carry out the agenda that he has wanted all along. It's shameful and it's wrong. Republicans will do everything in our power to fix this Republican mess, to provide health care to people, and to ensure that the American people aren't left out in the cold, because it's the right thing to do. Leader Jeffries.
Pete, questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Leader. Two quick questions for you. One, I want to get your reaction to Russ Vought announcing this $18 billion hold on infrastructure projects in New York City. Do you think you're personally being targeted?
The Trump administration is targeting the jobs, thousands of jobs, of hard-working Americans, working-class Americans, and blue-collar Americans who are going to lose the ability to work. At the 2nd Avenue subway site, or at the other project that has been canceled related to the Cross Harbor Tunnel. That's consistent with what the Trump administration has consistently done throughout their time in office. Lose jobs, cause economic pain and hardship for the American people. It's shameful, but it's very consistent with the Trump administration's track record of failing on the economy and targeting working class Americans.
And then just one quick follow-up, just what's happening on the Senate side. It seems there have been some bipartisan discussions on the Senate floor where they may be discussing some type of short-term CR and trying to buy a little bit more time to work through some of these issues like the ACA. Have you been briefed on those discussions? Do you support what's happening in the other chamber?
I haven't had a conversation with Leader Schumer about any developments on the Senate floor, but House Democrats and Senate Democrats remain consistent.
All right, everyone, we're going to switch gears here. We do have some White House officials who landed in Memphis earlier today. In fact, Attorney General Pam Bondi, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller talking about the task force that will hit the ground on Memphis' streets here soon. Let's go to this now.
In my office and frankly across the state of Tennessee for what's happening here in Memphis. hard to measure. Thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for everyone at WCNC.
Thank you all for what you do. President Trump made it clear to all of us, and we know that Memphis is an iconic city, and we are going to make Memphis safe again. That's why we're here. We're working hand in hand with you. President Trump cares about you, and all of us care about you. All of you, we are here to have your backs. All of the law enforcement officers in this room. You got our backs, and we are going to have yours. And by the way, there's a federal shutdown right now. I don't know if you saw that in D.C. Well, we know crime doesn't shut down. And that's why we're all here. You work 24/7, and we're all working 24/7 to have your backs. Federal agents in this room, DEA, ATF, FBI, U.S. Marshals, working hand in hand with HSI, all of Pete's Guard, all of our officers working hand in hand with you as a team. That's what we did in D.C., and that's what we're going to do here. We're going to keep you safe. And let me be very, very clear. I am a career prosecutor. If you touch a law enforcement officer, it is a crime and you are going to jail. We are arresting anyone who touches any of you. If you touch it's going to be assault on a federal officer, and we have our U.S. attorney here. And to all of you state and local officers, let's see what your DA does, because he better prosecute crimes against you, because we have your backs. We know there is no ordinary day in the life of a police officer. And thank you for what you do, and thank your families. You are out here night and day. God bless you. We are here for you, and we will always be here for you. We are going to, this is long term. We are going to work hand in hand to make the most violent crime city in the country have no crime. Thank you all. God bless you, and God bless America.
I'll just say what a privilege it is to be here. We see you up front, we see you in the back. I see green, blue, black, tan, camouflage, all together, one cause, one city. It's really cool to have a privilege, and we all do, Stephen, Pam, myself, so many others, to see how much President Trump loves Americans, American cities, and American citizens, and how he puts America first. And at the Department of War, we are proud to be part of that effort to ensure we're defending the homeland and defending those who defend the homeland. Whether it's our southwest border, where we brought it to 0 folks crossing illegally, whether it's in Los Angeles, where we stand by our partners in ICE, who need to be able to have the ability to do their job anywhere in any American city. Whether it's Washington, D.C., ensuring our nation's capital is safe for citizens and visitors who come to visit that beautiful place, or right here in Memphis, where your families, every family, deserves to live safe.
All right, folks, we're going to cut away and go back to the White House press briefing, which was already queued up for you. We'll go back to it here. But we had been discussing both sides, the Democrats giving us a rebuttal, talking about why they did not necessarily talk with the Republicans before the government shutdown deadline. And then obviously Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt giving the other side. So we'll go to this right now.
Accepting it because there has been some controversy. Pope Leo commented on this, and he said that someone who says I'm against abortion, but I'm in agreement with the inhumane treatment of immigrants in the United States, I don't know if that's pro-life. You've been very open about your Catholic faith. How do you respond to that?
I would reject there is inhumane treatment of illegal immigrants in the United States under this administration. There was, however, significant inhumane treatment of illegal immigrants in the previous administration as they were being trafficked and raped and beaten, and in many cases killed, over our United States southern border. You also look at the inhumane treatment at the hands of some of these illegal immigrants that took place under the previous administration as well. Laken Riley comes to mind, a beautiful American citizen who was killed at the hands of an illegal immigrant. So this administration is trying to enforce our nation's laws in the most humane way possible, and we're upholding the law, and we're doing that on the behalf of the people of our country who live here.
Josh. Thanks a lot, Caroline. What is the level of concern that the administration has regarding a protracted government shutdown in terms of its impact on the U.S. economy and also its impact on small businesses as well?
Well, look, this government shutdown is no doubt going to impact everyday Americans, and it is the fault of the Democrats that we are in this position. And I know I relayed some programs that will be impacted, the Vice President did as well, but I just want to make sure the American public understand what the Democrats have done to our government and our country. 1.3 million active duty troops will work now without pay. Critical food assistance for low-income women, infants, and children will now lapse. No new mothers or children are allowed to join this critical program because of the Democrats' decision to shut down the government. Telehealth services for seniors and in-home treatment options for Medicare patients will now come to an end. Nearly 50,000 members of the United States Coast Guard are going to have to work unpaid. Over 13,000 air traffic controllers will work without pay, as well as TSA agents, which will very likely create flight disruptions. And pay will now stop for over 150,000 federal law enforcement officers. These are not just numbers and statistics. These are real Americans who have families at home. And I saw some Democrat members today saying they're still going to accept their paychecks because they have 3 kids at home and they have mouths to feed. Well, so do these federal workers who those same Democrats just voted to shut down the government and turn off their pay. And we believe that's very unfair, and it's why the administration wants to see the government reopened.
GDP growth fell by about 0.5 percentage point during the last government shutdown during the president's first term. Are you expecting a similar type of impact on GDP growth related to this potential protracted government shutdown?
Well, look, I think it's dependent upon how long this shutdown continues. So it's dependent on how long it takes Democrats to muster up the coverage, 5 of them, to vote in the best interest of our country, our citizens, and our economy. Eamon.
Thank you, Caroline. Yesterday, your administration took a 5% stake in Lithium Americas and a stake in the mine that they're working on, and you've taken stakes in other companies and revenue streams from other companies. Can you articulate the broader principle here? When does the administration see it as appropriate to demand equity stakes or revenue streams from American companies? And what other companies are you going to be demanding those from?
Well, look, this is a creative solution by the President of the United States to tackle our nation's crippling debt crisis. As I said earlier, we are $37 trillion, trillion with a T, in debt. And not only is the President effectively utilizing tariffs to bring in massive amounts of revenue, and there's billions of dollars coming in every month. I know you know that, even, because you cover it on CNBC quite well. So the President is focused on how can the United States government make more money? How can we make our country wealthy and rich again? And cutting some of these unique creative deals with companies around the world and here at home is just one way the President is seeking to do that. And I know the Department of Energy just announced this new deal. It's another great deal for the American people and our government.
And on Lisa Cook,
Sure, go ahead.
Lisa Cook,
Yeah.
the Supreme Court said today that she's going to be allowed to stay at the Federal Reserve Board until oral arguments in January. Does the President have any personal reaction to that? This has been something he's been very intent on.
Look, we have respect for the Supreme Court, but they're going to hear the actual case and make a determination on the legal argument in January. And we look forward to that because we maintain that she was fired well within the President's legal authority to do so. She was removed from the board, and we look forward to that case being fully played out at the Supreme Court. Reagan.
I have one for you on EJ and Tony and one on the shutdown. Sure. CNN reported that Collins and Murkowski declined to meet with EJ and Tony, raising concerns that his nomination was in trouble. I'm wondering what message Collins and Murkowski are sending to the White House by not meeting with one of the president's nominees.
Well, look, E.J. Antony remains a great ally of the President and our team. It became clear, unfortunately, that he was not going to have the votes, and so we will be announcing a replacement nominee very soon.
And on the shutdown, I'm just wondering how soon you could see cuts to federal work place, and if there's a specific agency that will experience the most cuts or be focused?
Unfortunately, because the Democrats shut down the government, the president has directed his cabinet, and the Office of Management and Budget is working with agencies across the board to identify where cuts can be made, and we believe that layoffs are imminent. They are, unfortunately, a consequence of this government shutdown. Ed.
Thanks, Carolyn. So you talked about the layoffs being imminent. Is there a percentage then of reduction that the White House is looking for of workforce?
I don't have a specific percentage for you.
Can I ask what about China, if I could? So China has not made one soybean purchase this year in the United States. I talked to a farmer yesterday who has about 1,000 acres in Iowa and says this is just killing her. Now, the president has been talking to President Xi. Could China not buying agriculture affect a possible meeting with the president? Would he not meet with Xi because China has refused to buy soybeans from the U.S.?
Look, I don't want to speak for the president.
All right, guys, we're going to get you some breaking news, actually, that we will update on the 11 o'clock news. We're just hearing that there's a gunshot wound situation happening with one patient being transported with life-threatening injuries. So clearly a shooting happening on Metropolitan Avenue, the 900 block of Metropolitan Avenue, a pretty densely populated area. And medic just kind of confirming this for us in the last 5 to 6 minutes. So it seems like it's obviously a large shopping area in that way. There's a Target, a few other things in that same building/parking deck structure that they have on Metropolitan Avenue. So still trying to determine exactly what happened and where. We'll get you updates tonight at 11. We'll see you then.